Hello, hey everybody. Welcome back.
Hey everyone.
Hey, we got Kip with us today. Serena's with us. I'm with you. I'm Jason. It's good to have you back. This is the third time that Kip's been with us. If you have watched the first two, then keep going. If you missed the first two, then we'll link to them below in the description in case you watch the video later on. But Kip, thanks for coming back. Last time, two times you've talked about different aspects of job hunting, and today you're going to talk about interviewing and negotiating, which I'm terrible at negotiating because I don't ask. I'm like, no, I'm good. I get, I'm good. Interviews, I'm fantastic at interviews because I don't care if I get the job. Like that's the way I walk
Ah,
in. I'm like, I don't care. Like, but I take that back. Like there are times where I'm like, I hope I get this job. But for the most part, I'm like, I'll just answer your questions. But I'm pretty sure you have a better way of doing it than any of the two ways I just talked about. So how about you take over and then we'll ask questions and engage with the people who are here. All right.
sure. Yeah, absolutely. I can do that. Well, it's great to be back. Thanks so much for inviting me. I feel really good that I've been here twice and you wanted me to come back a third time. I love that. Thank you. Might still be the biggest mistake you've ever made. I don't know. We'll find out. But I thought it would be great to build upon what we've already talked about and and actually go the full distance and talk about interviews, how to crush your interviews, and then how to do the negotiation. And I'm going to tell you these things from the side of the table that I sit on, right, which is the hiring manager side of the table. And I'm going to share with you a lot of hiring manager secrets, which you can then use to Jedi mind trick the hiring manager next time you get in there. And then I want it to go well for you. In fact, I want you to do so well in this process that you will be seen as an absolutely irresistible candidate by the hiring manager, that they will feel on the inside that they cannot continue until they add you to their team and do that at a top dollar rate. And not only that, but I want you to have multiple competing offers from multiple hiring managers at top dollar. So if you want that, that's my goal, is to try to give you that. So between the sessions I did last time and the one that we're going to do here today, if you wrap it all up, then it should really help you. And if it doesn't help you, you should send me a note, because I think what I'm sharing with you, based on my experience of sharing this with other people, it's going to help 90% of the people 90% of the time that they try it. And if it doesn't work for you, I want to know more about it. And then, Jason, you said you during our pre-show you were saying you might put a playlist together, right?
Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll take the three videos that you've done, we'll put a playlist together in case somebody's like, "Hey, let me just go through all three of these," because I, like I believe people who are job hunting need advice because nobody teaches people how to job hunt. Like that's not a
Mm-mm.
thing taught in schools. That's not taught in universities. That's not taught anywhere. And so having a hiring manager actually say like, "Hey, here's how I hire," is what people need to hear because it's scary to interview because I've always thought like job hunting is the worst because that piece of paper you put together and that interview will be the difference between eating and retirement and like all these other things. So like there's some stress involved there.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. There's so much hanging on it. And not just eating, but also ego. Right? I mean, like, it hurts to get rejected. It does not feel good at all. And especially when they don't tell you, right? You just get that crazy email, maybe, or they ghost you, but you might get that email that just says, you're not right, you don't meet the qualifications, whatever, but they never really tell you. They never really give you any useful feedback. And that can just be really awful. It could be like a gut punch. I've talked with lots of people that really struggle with the way that we do hiring in this country, and so yeah, I want to share with you what's going on the other side of the table, and I really want this to help you. So why don't we dig in? Oh, and by the way, Jason, when you make the playlist, and thank you for doing that, would you add your video to that playlist where you tell people how to find hiring managers online so that you can talk directly to them? Because I think you're excellent at that, and I would want people to add that to the toolkit.
I'm on mute.
You're not. I was about to say, you're
So,
not so great at the mute button.
man, like you could use open source intelligence gathering to track down hiring managers and recruiters. I was like, oh, hello, it's nice to meet you.
Yeah. Yeah, but what I like about the way you do it is first of all, you don't do it in a creepy way.
Yeah.
And secondly, you actually not only tell folks how to find the hiring manager, but what to do when you find them to make a good impression.
Mhm.
And let's face it, most OSINT courses don't teach you that part.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I
The
love
main
that you
thing
do.
is don't talk too much. People don't have that much time to read your whole history of who you are. Just keep it
Yeah,
simple.
but I also like the way you just have like a certain patter about the
Mhm.
way you.
Oh no, we're losing Kip. He was good in pre-show. He was good.
It's humble.
All right,
It's good.
and almost Kip is back. Almost. You're fading in there a little bit. Okay. Looks like
Am I
someone
back?
Oh
in your
no.
maybe someone in your house is downloading something big. Is there someone
Uh-oh.
downloading like a 9 gig file? No, 9 terabytes. No.
I don't think so.
All right, I think you're good now. All right, let's keep going.
Sorry about that.
No, no worries.
Anyway, so I was just complimenting your OSINT skills coupled with respectable human interaction.
Thanks. All right, Kip, let's get to it. What would you like to talk
All
about?
right, let's do it. Let's focus on interviews to begin with. All right. So what I want to do is I want to explain to you what does the interview experience look like from the hiring manager's point of view, and how does this insider's knowledge help you to really do a good job of coming across as competent, as humble and hungry and curious, and all the things that hiring managers are looking for. So first of all. Uh, y- if you got invited to the interview, that's amazing. What and there's something that I want you to understand. It means your resume is working. It means that your resume did the job. It got you to the interview because really that's the only purpose of a resume is to get you an interview. A resume is not designed to get you a job. It's designed to get you the interview. And so congratulations if you've reached it to the interview stage. You're doing something right. You may not know what it is, but whatever it is, keep doing it and get yourself more interviews. So when you're in an interview, uh, what I'm trying to find out from you is can you do the job? Will you do the job? And do you fit into my team? Right? It's really those three things. And and why is it those three things? Because I've met people who can do the job, but they don't really want to do the job. I've met people who want to do the job but can't do it because they don't have the skills or the aptitude. And I've met people who can do the job, will do the job, but they don't fit. And that is very destructive to my team's productivity and to our culture and the way that we like to work. So it's got to be those three things. Now I test for those three things, and it starts by looking at your resume. But then when I ask you to come in for an interview, what I'm looking for, or what I'm going to do is I'm going to have you go through at least three interviews. And if it's something we can do in person, all the better. If we have to do it virtually, we'll do that. Is everything okay, Jason?
Yeah, I was just
Okay.
sometimes the full size. You're like,
Okay. I wasn't sure if you're going to tell me like, I had a wardrobe malfunction or something. I wasn't sure where this was going.
I just wanted to be on camera again.
Okay.
I was
Welcome
getting
back, Jason.
lonely.
So what's going to happen is that if I can interview you in person, that'll be great. If I have to do a virtual like a Zoom or something like that, we'll do that. But the way it's going to go is that you're first going to get a screen from probably an internal recruiter, somebody who works in the human resources department. They're going to do an initial phone screen. What they're looking for is high level. Do you fit the job description and do you fit the dominant culture of the company? That's really what they're looking for, and so it's a very coarse grained screen, and they probably don't know very much about the work that we do. Right, they're not information security professionals, they're human resources professionals, and they may or may not do this kind of hiring very often. Right, so when I worked at an insurance company as a chief information security officer, my HR department knew how to hire claims adjusters and customer service people. They were the best at that. And every now and then I would come and I would say, help me hire a cybersecurity analyst or an information security analyst or whatever. And, and they would just sort of naturally default to the things that they knew that worked when they hired claims adjusters or customer service people. And I had to work with them and say that, that doesn't really work all that great. Let's figure out a different approach. So, but once you get past that internal recruiter coarse grained screen, the next thing that's going to happen is you're going to meet with one of my team members, and they're going to talk with you just to kind of get to know you, just to get some sense of what you're like. And the first question that you might get would be a question that I think you can easily anticipate, which is, so, Kip, tell me about yourself. That is a softball question that almost everybody asks at the beginning of an interview from a hiring manager's point of view. And what that means for you is you need to have a marvelous answer that you've rehearsed and that you can say in a very natural, fluid way. Talk for a couple of minutes about who you are and things that you like to do. And this is really important because it's going to set the tone for the rest of the experience that you're going to have with my team, because you're talking to one of my team members right now. You're not talking to me. I'm letting a team member get to know you a little bit. So when they say, "So tell me about yourself," um, you know, think about what can you share that would be helpful for them to know why you're a great candidate. You might mention, that you're a naturally curious person. If that's true, you might want to talk about how you enjoy technology or something like that, right? See if you can take something about you or a personal interest and try to connect it to the work, to the job that you're applying for, if that's possible. Don't lie, don't stress the truth, don't do anything like that. But you this is your chance to really put yourself out there, and show us that that you're worth having to come back for another interview, right? The goal of every interview is to get the next interview until you get to the offer. All right. So be thinking about that. Um, another thing that you don't that in response to this question, tell me about yourself. There's some things you don't want to do. All right. Do not mention anything about your religion. Don't tell them what country you come from. Don't even affirm that you were born in the United States if you were. Don't tell them about your marital status. Don't tell them about your medical conditions. In essence, if they're not allowed to ask you the question, don't bring it up. There are lots of things they cannot ask you. If you're a woman, they can't ask you if you're pregnant, things like that. So don't volunteer that information. You're making it too easy for a hiring manager to potentially participate in illegal discrimination against you. Don't do that. They can't ask you. You shouldn't tell them. Another thing that you might get asked right off the bat in this interview is, what do you know about our company? Well, I hope you've done a little bit of research and that you can talk intelligently about the company. Is it publicly traded or not? Would be a wonderful thing for you to know right off the bat. Have you read their website? Do you know what their values are? If you interview with Amazon, for example, they're going to expect that you have read about their corporate culture and their value system, and that's really important. And if you haven't done that and you show up for the interview, they're pretty much going to bounce you at that point. So definitely get some familiarity with the company. You might also be asked, why do you want to work here? Never say because you need a paycheck. Even joking, don't say that, because that is a huge turnoff. Nobody really wants you to show up just because you want a paycheck. They want you to show up because of your natural interest in the job, or your desire to grow professionally, or things like that. So be careful about that, answering that question. Why do
Yeah,
you want to work here? Be sincere.
so,
Talk about how you want to be part of a team and how you want to
yeah,
serve customers. Okay, Jason, what's up?
Kip, I just want to interject. It's like generally, I when I'm hunting for a job, I find companies that align with the mission that I want my life to have, or like the
hmm
goals that I want my life to have. So, do you advocate for hunting for work that you want to do, or work that you can find?
Gosh, I'll tell you the ideal thing. All right, the ideal thing is that you're going to hunt for jobs that are going to let you grow professionally and work in a zone that really appeals to you, right? Where you're drawing from your strengths and your passions every day. as much as possible, right? That's really the ideal situation that you want to be in. I know not everybody's in that ideal situation, right? And
Sure.
so sometimes you are there for the paycheck, but for God's sake, don't say that.
Sure.
Not because I'm encouraging you to lie, but that really shouldn't be your motivation for going to work every day anyway. I mean, I just don't think that's sustainable.
Yeah, someone I heard a long time ago was like find the actual purpose in the job that you have because someone, I don't want to say anything bad about garbage men, but I'm going to pick like it's the job that no one wants. But I was like, have you ever seen those pandemic movies where the garbage doesn't get picked up for 3 weeks? Like the mission that you have to make the world a better place is massive, and so if you can
Hmm.
find the thing that makes that job make the world better,
Yeah.
then it makes you happy about coming to work. So even if it's for a paycheck, but you can find that thing that makes the world a better place, then it's not just a
Definitely.
paycheck.
Well, purpose, right? People want purpose. That's a way that you can find purpose, right? Is think about the big picture. There's a story about a stonemason who gets asked, "What are you doing?" And there's a team of masons, and the first one says, "Well, I'm hewing a rock," and the second one, says, I'm contributing, to the construction of this great cathedral, and then the third one says, I'm here to honor God, right? And so the point here is like, it is possible to see your work at different levels of fulfillment. And the point that I'm making is that people generally want purpose, and so you need to find purpose in what you're doing, even if you are just there for the paycheck. And I know that happens. I know that some people, that's just where they're at in life, and I get it. But you're gonna do a lot better off if you can find that purpose in there. So, um, and you'll come off as an irresistible candidate if you can connect with purpose. If your purpose with the purpose of the organization that you're interviewing in. When you're in this interview with my team member, this is after you've talked to the internal recruiter. We're probably going to ask you some behavioral questions, right? And it'll be things like, "Hey, would you tell me about a time when you communicated a technical issue to a non-technical team?" Or we might say, "Have you ever made a big mistake on the job? And if so, how did you handle it?" And there might be another question like, "Hey, would you tell me about a decision you made that wasn't popular, that affected a lot of people, and how you managed to implement it anyway?" Right? Or what do you do if you have a disagreement with somebody at work and it keeps you from getting an important task done? All right. So these are all behavioral questions, because what we're trying to find out is, what's it like to work with you? I mean, we're not going to put you on the job yet, so we're going to come up with these questions to try to figure out, how you actually work before we can actually see you work. Now, what I want you to know about these behavioral questions is there's actually a framework that you can use to respond to these questions. All right. It's called, and there's more than one, but I'm going to teach you one called SHARE, SHARE. And that stands for situation, hindrance, action, results, and evaluation, right? You want to go through all five of those things when you answer these behavioral questions, which almost always start with, "Would you tell me about a time when?" Okay. And so I want to give you an example. Okay. So, Jason, I want you to ask me if I've ever worked for a fast growing company before, and did I like it? With your mute
Jason.
button off.
I had the perfect like interview voice and everything, and
You can do it again.
okay, all right, here we go. Hey Kip. Well, Kip, thanks so much for coming in today. Hey Kip, have you ever worked for a fast-growing company? Did you like that?
That's a great question. Yes, I have worked at several fast-growing companies before, and I do it because I love the energy. The issue that I run into is it's not always clear how to get things done. But I tell you what I've learned how to do in that situation is I reach out to someone who I think knows a lot about the area that I'm trying to, get a decision made. And even though it takes some time to get them to respond to me, I know from experience that once we start working together, I know that we can get it done, even though we don't have a formal process for doing that stuff. So that's how I avoid getting stressed out about not having the written procedures that, startups generally don't have.
That's nice. That's good. That worked.
So I'm hired, right?
Yes.
So think about that answer that I just gave, right? Let's decode it, right? I used share. So I talked about my situation. I've worked at several fast growing companies before and I love the energy. I've talked about a typical hindrance, which is the H. I said, but it's not always clear how to get things done because there's not written procedures. I talked about the action that I took, right? So, what I learned to do is I learned to reach out to somebody who knows about the area that I'm trying to get a decision in. And then I transitioned into results. And I said, even though it can take some time to get a response, I know that once I start working with this person that, we're going to get it done. And then finally, I talked about my evaluation, which is another way of saying, what did I learn from that experience? And I said, that's how I avoid getting stressed out about the lack of written procedures in a fast growing startup company. So I hope you can see that by using this share framework, right, I can reply with a lot of confidence and I can cover all the essential bases. And my interviewer is going to be able to understand what I'm saying. And there might be a follow up question, who knows? But that I find works really well. This share framework when you're in a behavioral interview session. So there you go. That's what your next interview would be like if you were trying to come on my team.
So one thing is, Kip, you speak well. So
Thank you.
since you speak well, I heard no ahs and ums during your response.
Great.
So that's not typical from people, and ahs and ums make people sound slightly unconfident.
Correct.
Where did you
Right.
speak? Where did you learn to speak without ahs and ums?
Well, I sometimes fall into it anyway. So I appreciate you complimenting me, but the truth is I still sometimes do it. However, it's all about practice. It really,
Mhm.
really is all about practice. So I have two podcasts that I co-host.
Mhm.
So I get a ton of practice. When I was in
Sure.
high school, I was in high school debate, so I got a ton of practice speaking in front of other people. And so practice, practice, practice. Toastmasters, right?
Mhm. Yeah. So I just wanted to bring that up because sometimes people don't realize practicing interviews is a part of the process of interviewing, like practicing.
Hmm.
Some people like there's like, I have it tomorrow. I'm so freaked out. Like, okay, would you like to practice with somebody leading up to that interview? Because that's what Kip's doing right now. We're practicing an interview, and he's getting a chance to say things without ahs and ums. And I've been through Toastmasters for years, where I learned to not do ahs and ums. I do have a lot of other verbal ticks that I do, but it's not ahs and ums for the most part, unless I am unconfident about the things I'm about to talk about. All right, back to you, Kip.
Oh, thanks. Okay, so that wraps up the second interview that you might experience if you're trying to get a job on my team. The third interview that you would experience if we like what we've heard so far and we believe that you are still a strong candidate, maybe even irresistible at this point, is we're going to do another interview designed to test your hard skills because we want to know what you're actually capable of. And we want to see what you can do. And we also want to know what it's like to solve technical problems with you. And we'll also be evaluating your soft skills, right? So, do you, in the course of solving a problem, are you respectful to the person that you're collaborating with, or are you dominating? I mean, we just want to know what it's like. So we'll probably get together with you in a whiteboard, either a real whiteboard or a virtual whiteboard, and we'll ask you to solve a problem at the whiteboard, or maybe share your screen and show us how you're solving the problem, and we'll start off with some very basic things like, would you please diagram and explain your home network or your home lab and show us how it works? And then we might ask you questions as you go along. Oh, how does that work? Or, oh, where'd you get that box? Or, hey, why did you tie those two things together? Or why did you choose this protocol instead of that protocol? Right. And so we're just having a collaborative technical session here. I might ask you other questions like, hey, would you diagram and explain how a TCP handshake works? Or something like that. All right. I might give you the results of a vulnerability scan, and I might ask you to identify the number one vulnerability that you see on the report. and I might ask you to tell me how you would mitigate it, and I might ask you a bunch of follow-on questions. Now, you're not going to interview with me on this one. This technical interview is going to be done with another member of my team because I want somebody else to meet you and to form an impression about what it's like to work with you, and whether it would be a good experience to have you on the team or not. So so that's that's what the technical interview is going to be like. Now, it's difficult for me to tell you what the tech questions are going to be because it depends on the job that you're applying for. Whereas the
Kip,
behavior questions are going to be pretty standard. So
so Kip, during that technical, like, would they see me Googling, or would I just only show the one screen? So I have like two browsers open. I got the Google browser, I got the work browser, and I'm only sharing the work browser. And I'm like,
yeah.
is that like
Well, now that it's unconstitutional for me to ask you to show me your room, I'll never know.
So, I mean, 3 interviews. Is that typical, or is that
It's typical
excessive?
for me, and it's pretty typical for others. Yeah, I would say 3 is pretty typical. It might go longer than that. There's some organizations that are really afraid of a mishire. Like,
Mhm.
they have a lot of trauma in the past from hiring people who didn't work out. And so for them, they might have many more interviews with many more people, and they might really take a long time to make the decision.
So
Three
people
years
talk
is
about.
my max. Or 3 years. 3 interviews is my max. If you need more than that, I'm sorry. No
Well,
way.
sure. And as a candidate, of course, you've got
Yeah.
your opinion on this, and an employer that's being ultra cautious is going to lose the opportunity to,
Mhm.
to make you an offer because you're not willing to wait around, and that's okay.
Yeah. I think I saw on Twitter someone saying like they had 8 interviews for one company, which included multiple like technical interviews and projects. And I'm like, not for me. I mean, maybe if somebody else wants to sink their time into it, but I don't know.
Yeah.
That's not. I mean, 3 seems pretty typical. Because it's usually just like an initial interview, maybe like a phone interview, a technical interview, and then like the final interview with like a hiring manager and maybe somebody else.
Yes.
Um, is usually from my experience how it's set up.
And that's what I do as well. So after the technical interview, if you still seem irresistible to us and we want to make you an offer, that would be the next step. You would meet
Yeah.
with me, and I would have my chance to get to know you a little bit. Of course, I've already talked to the internal recruiter. I've already talked to the other 2 team members of mine who met with you, right? And so I've gotten their feedback, and now I'm going to meet you. And then if I like what that experience is, and if it's consistent with what I've heard with the other people, then I might go ahead and give you the offer. So yeah, so that's the approach. And one of the things that I want to do for those of you who are watching this stream today and for joining us, I want to give you a bonus because I can. So what I've got for you, and Jason, you'll have to tell me, how we can get this to folks. But I actually have 2 PDFs that I want to give you. One of them is going to be the top 40 soft skills questions that you can expect to encounter in an interview, and the other one is the top 40 hard skills questions you can expect to encounter in an interview. And by using these, you can practice your answers, and you can practice them out loud, so you can get rid of those ahs and ums.
Do you want people to email you and you'll respond with it?
I would be happy to do that. Yep.
I
All right,
think
the email is on the
in my
screen.
experience too, sorry.
Okay.
I like at least personally for me, the technical interview is always my least favorite because I've
Mm,
had so many just bad technical interviews. And
mm,
I feel like that's something that we could probably make a whole other streamer video about is like how to conduct a good technical interview.
yeah.
Because one, there's a lot of opinions and it's like some people say one thing, other people say another. But like for me, one, it's always really nerve-wracking not knowing what to expect going into like a technical interview.
Mm-hmm.
And then like what questions are they going to ask you? You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And I'm one of those people that definitely like if someone just like asks me a question, it's like I walk into a technical interview and I forget everything I've ever known. And it's miserable. And one
Yeah.
time I've had like most of the times it's been like 2 technical interviewers. And one time for my very first job out of college, I was interviewing, and the two technical interview people like started getting in like an argument about whether or not my answer was like correct or not. And I'm just like,
Wow.
this is so like, this
Well,
is horrible.
you dodged a bullet there.
Well, I did accept the job.
Oh no!
Oh.
Did it turn out all right?
It wasn't that bad. It ended up being
It wasn't
fine,
that bad.
but
What a
yeah,
ringing
no,
endorsement.
it was an interesting technical interview, but like most places that I've had a technical interview, the interview has been just like miserable.
Oh, I'm sorry. I am so sorry about that. That's why we try to make ours more of a of a conversation, right?
Yeah.
And the point isn't to stump you or to give you impossible to solve challenges. We know from the research that doesn't really work, right? So if you've ever heard of these interviews where they ask you like, why are manhole covers round, and how many pennies could you fit in a 747? I mean, that stuff it's not predictive of success on the job at all, and we know that from the research. So you shouldn't be doing things that research says isn't predictive. So from the hiring manager point of view, right, if there's any hiring managers watching today, please look up what works and do that. Don't make up stuff just because it seems fun for you. You're going to give candidates the kinds of experience that you're hearing today, that Serena's talking about, and it's not going to be predictive of on the job success anyway. So why are you doing it?
Yeah. So technical interviews remind me of like dungeon masters from Dungeons and Dragons. Like there are dungeon masters out there that's like, I'm going to give you 9 of the monsters. There's nothing you can do about. They're going to destroy you. And you're like, what are you doing? Like, we're supposed to be like having a good game here. We're having a good time. We're on a.
I thought we were buds.
Yeah, and there's other dungeon masters like, okay, Ari, I'm gonna give you like all these magical items so that way you can succeed in anything that you do. And so I think human beings like it biases everything that we do, and that's fine. All right, Kip, we have a question from Brian. Says, how do you recommend those that speak with their hands deal with that in an interview?
Speak with your hands. I don't have a problem with speaking with your hands. You probably have seen I'm waving my hands around, right? So I don't have a problem with speaking with your hands as an idea. There are things that you should not do with your hands, though. I mean, that just are not going to come off really well. Don't try to touch the other person if you're in the room with them. Don't pick your nose, right? That's not good. Don't pick your ear, right? I mean, there's some personal hygiene things here, right? Don't lick your finger and, that sort of business. That stuff's obviously out of bounds. Don't go too crazy with your hands either, right? This stuff, right? Don't go too fast like that. I wouldn't put my hands in my pockets either, because that's going to look kind of unusual, right? So talk with your hands by all means, but just keep it at a at a nice casual pace. All right.
Sure. All right. Negotiating. You ready to move on negotiating?
Yeah, unless there's any other questions about the interviews, we will definitely go on to negotiating. And if there are questions about interviews, we can pick them up at the end, right?
Absolutely. If anyone has any questions
Yeah.
about interviews, feel free to ask them, and we'll ask them towards the end. All right.
Okay. So let's talk about negotiation. All right. So in our magic scenario here today, as your incident master, I have deftly navigated you through the initial phone screen with the HR representative, the initial get to know you with behavior questions with a member of my team, the technical interview with a member of my team, and we think you're irresistible. We want to make you a job offer. So now you're going to meet with me, and I'm going to put an offer in front of you. Now I want to talk to you about what it's like for a hiring manager to prepare and deliver a job offer for somebody that they would like to have on their team. Now, negotiations are more art than science, and that might frustrate you, but that's just the way it is. And I want you to first of all realize that the situation's out of whack. And what I mean by that is that the employer, the hiring manager, has almost all the advantage here, all right, over you. The asymmetry is really pretty incredible. I have so much information at my disposal. I know what other people at my organization make for comparable work that you're applying for. I know all kinds of information about what the salary bands are in my organization. I know what benefits we have. I know where we're flexible, and I know where we're not flexible. You don't know any of that stuff, and so it's an uneven playing field. And your job is to try to level that playing field as much as you can during the negotiation, and I think that's completely fair. Now, a lot of people don't like negotiating, and so they'll just, I'll push an offer in front of them. They'll look at it, and if it meets or beats the number that they had in their mind, then they'll be like, "Yes, please. When do I start?" And the negotiation is over, and it really wasn't a negotiation. And I get it. Some people don't feel comfortable negotiating. They don't want to go on the used car lot and haggle, right? They just want to go to the car lot that has the price that you pay, and they just want to pay the price, and they want to get the heck out of there. So, and as a hiring manager, I encounter people across that whole spectrum. So, so what I'm about to tell you, you're going to have to decide whether it fits your temperament or not, whether it's something that you're willing to do, or whether you think it's completely out of bounds for you. So, um, now, one thing else that I want to say too is that research is showing, we have data that says that women are especially less likely to ask for more money than they're offered initially. So when I put an offer in front of a candidate who's a woman versus a candidate who's a man, the woman is much less likely to open a negotiation with me on that, and that's unfortunate, because I think everybody should negotiate, whether you're a man or a woman. I'm a dad. I have
Wait,
got 4 daughters,
I think that's very
and I
important.
encourage them to negotiate.
I think we should stop there. Everyone should negotiate. That was the most important thing you just said. Everyone
Hmm.
should negotiate. Even the person who's like, me, I should negotiate, but the offer is better than what they offered. Do you still think that that person should negotiate?
Yes,
Yes, thank you.
absolutely.
Yes. Everyone should negotiate.
Absolutely. You should negotiate. And I'm going to teach you how to negotiate right now. I'm going to teach you what you can do. Now, there's many ways to do it. I'm not telling you my way is the best way. It's certainly not the only way, but I'm telling you from a hiring manager's point of view what will probably work if you do it. And you may want to practice this with somebody that you trust, so that you will not fumble when you find yourself in that situation. Now, if you feel uncomfortable discussing money and it feels all awkward, I'm sorry. You're just going to have to. If you practice it, I promise you, it'll get better. Okay. Now, uh, another thing I want to tell you is that when you do negotiate, I want you to remember that you are not buying a house or a car. All right. And the reason why I'm saying that to you is because when you buy a car or a house and you negotiate, you never really have to deal with the seller again. Once the transaction's done, the seller's gone, and you never have to deal with them again. But if you negotiate with me and you succeed, and I put you on my team, you're going to see me every day. You're going to interact with me. So bear that in your mind, and don't be a jerk when you negotiate with me, because I might
Mhm.
withdraw the offer. All right.
Mhm.
So negotiate, but don't be a jerk. All
Okay.
right. All right. Um, so um, you do not want to start by giving an unrealistically high expected salary. That's not the way to go, because my interpretation of that is going to be, that you're not grounded in the real world, that you haven't done any homework at all to figure out, what a job like the one you're applying for will pay. Now, there's still unfairness, right? And I acknowledge that. You're limited. You're going to go to places like Glassdoor, the Bureau of Labor Statistics. You're going to go to cyberseek.org. You're going to go to LinkedIn Jobs, right? And you can gather some salary information from those places, uh, and I think you should. Salary.com is another place that you can go to. So ground yourself some way on what you might want to make. Now, if I'm a company that is offering a job in a certain state like Colorado, I'm obligated by law to publish a salary range. And as a job seeker, you should definitely know what that range is. And I would not try to start the negotiation or counter with a number that is far above that range. Another thing that I don't want you to do is I never want you to reveal your current salary. I never want you to reveal your previous salary. It's completely out of bounds. It's absolutely immaterial to the negotiation, and I don't want you to ever tell anybody what you're making now or what you've made in the past.
What about when they ask?
Nope. Especially when they
Some
ask.
states that's illegal too. So
That's
I think like in
correct.
California, you're not allowed to ask. I don't probably not Texas because Texas doesn't care at all about anyone.
Oh my Lord.
So probably not good here, but
If you go on the internet and you do a Google search or a Bing search, if you're one of those people, then you can find out which states where it is illegal to ask candidates about their salary history. And even if you're in a state where it's not illegal and somebody asks you about your salary history, you're not going to answer that question. All right. And I'm going to tell you, what to say, or I'm going to tell you how to deal with it. So, Jason, ask me how much I make at my current job.
Kip, thanks so much for coming in today. We're on our 9th interview, and I really appreciate you giving us this time. How much did you make in that last role, the one you're still at now?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking me, Jason, but I really don't think my current compensation is material to our conversation. What really matters is what are people being paid today? What's the market rate for a person in the job that you and I are talking about? That's really what I think we need to focus on.
You're saying I'm not relevant to the conversation?
I personally always like to bring up that like, salary is one part of a compensation package.
That's true.
So, if you're going from somewhere that's like, oh, well, I have 4 or 5 or 6 weeks of PTO or unlimited PTO at this job, but this job I only get two weeks, or the health insurance is different, or there's in some, especially working in tech, there's like RSUs, or just a bunch of like the full package is more important. So someone might be considering a different type of salary if they're getting maybe a lot of equity in the company and things like that.
Right,
So
right. And what's an
I was,
RSU
like,
again?
pointing out that. What was that?
You said RSU. Would you define that term?
On RSU, I forget. I honestly don't know what it stands for, but it's like where you get equity in the company and invest over time or whatever, like depending on what that
I
is.
think it's a restricted stock unit, I think is the definition of that. But if anyone's watching and you know exactly what RSU means, but you're right, it is a form of equity in the company.
Yeah, so that's especially like because we're talking about tech, there's all these other different types of compensation that's a part of a full package. And like I was saying, salary is only one piece of that. So be very aware of what the other benefits are of working there.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. There is a total package that you want to be thinking about. There's in HR land they call it total compensation, and some employers will actually give you a letter every year that summarizes what your total compensation is, and it's going to include all those things that you mentioned in order to give you a full understanding, right? And there's lots of invisible things that an employer pays for you, like in the United States we have a Social Security payroll tax, and you pay half of it. So on your check, when you see the deduction for that, a lot of people don't know that an employer pitches 100% in for everybody on their payroll to match that deduction, and it goes straight to the federal government. And that's actually something you should consider, because if you're a freelancer, you pay that full tax yourself. So you actually pay twice that amount when you don't have an employer that's pitching in half of it. So it's just an example of like some of the invisible stuff that we don't really think about when it comes to total compensation. But you should definitely think about total comp. And if salary isn't the most important thing for you in your total comp, maybe it's time off. Maybe you really want to have 4, 5, or 6 weeks of time off every year because you love to travel, and that's what's really important to you. Then by all means, bring that up and be willing to forego direct payment in form of salary so that you can get more time off if that's what's important to you, or maybe it's retirement plan is most important to you, or healthcare benefits, whatever it is. It's perfectly fine for you to put the emphasis on that, and to talk to the hiring manager about, hey, well, what can you do about this, and what can you do about that. But most people are really interested in how to negotiate the salary, and because the playing field is not level, I want to I want to give you a very specific technique for finding out some information that you don't know when you're going into the negotiation, and that is the pay range for the job, because almost every employer has an established pay range for every job title, be that a cybersecurity analyst 1 or a cybersecurity analyst 2 or a cybersecurity analyst 3, right? They've got like a progression, a career progression, and in every one of those job titles, they're going to have pay ranges. Now, they get that information from a salary survey that they subscribe to, where other employers, in order to subscribe, have to tell the research company, the publisher, what they're paying people on their payroll. So, unlike Glassdoor, where you've got people who are volunteering information about what they make, you employers can see the actual numbers, and there's no salary inflation, right? You just don't know when somebody puts on Glassdoor what they make. You don't know if that's real or not. Could be, but it might not be, and you don't know. But employers know, because they're deliberately going out and getting that information. So that's what you need to find out when you're in the negotiation. So when Jason asked me, hey, Kip, what do you make at your current job, and I deflected the question, my follow-up question is going to be, so Jason, what have you established as the pay range for this position with respect to the market rate? And that's what I'm trying to get back from the hiring manager. And that's a key piece of information. And if I were you, I would pursue it until I got it with
Hmm.
respect, but that's where I would go.
What's the
Okay.
pay range?
The pay range. You
So
want the pay range for that position.
yeah. Someone in the chat said healthcare is usually non-negotiable with companies. They have set plans which you take it or leave it, which is true. However, if you are getting like less of a good healthcare plan because it varies so much in the US, you can use that as a negotiation tool for your salary. So saying, so that's like something, healthcare is super important to me. So that's something that like I would be like, hey, like, this healthcare plan's significantly different than the one that I'm currently on.
Right.
And negotiate that extra difference into your salary. So while some things aren't negotiable, you can be compensated in other areas.
Mhm.
Right. Usually, um, employers have. And remember, I told you that you don't have all the information that I have as a hiring manager. I know where we can be flexible, and where we can't be flexible, and that flexibility can definitely come into play. And but you have to ask, and that's why I say you have to negotiate. But don't think of it as a negotiation, as in, like some down and dirty haggle, at the flea market. That's not what I'm saying. It's really an intelligent conversation about, what are you offering me, and can I tell you what's important to me, and how much room do you have to change your offer so that it fits me like a glove, because that's what I want. And if I can get an offer that fits me like a glove, then I'm probably going to stay. And guess what? Hiring managers do want people to stay. They want retention. It's very expensive to have to hire all the time and replace people that you've trained up, and you've gone through the process of identifying them and bringing them on board. By the way, I also want you to know about a resource that's available. It's called the Cybersecurity Hiring Manager's Handbook. I think I've mentioned it the last time I was here, Jason. But this is an open source project that I'm one of the leaders of, and it's available on GitHub. If you like to read Markdown files, I think I may have mentioned this before. If you don't like reading Markdown files, we also have a published version on Netlify, and I can give you all those URLs, or you can just go and use your favorite search engine and find it. It's called the Cybersecurity Hiring Manager's Handbook. Now, the reason why I'm mentioning it is because if you're a job seeker and you want to get into the mind of a hiring manager, which I'm advocating is what you really want to do, go browse the handbook, because it was written by 50 highly experienced cybersecurity hiring managers. They put their best stuff in there. So if you want to see how hiring managers are thinking about this, thinking about various aspects of the hiring process, I want you to go and I want you to check that out. Thank you for putting that up there on the screen. Appreciate it.
So there's this thing where like they talk about how one employee might go like, well, I do the same job as you, but I make less money, and another employee says, well, I do the same job as you, but you get more time off. Is it because it was negotiated that way? And so
Typically, yeah. Typically, that's what happened, right? So, as a hiring manager, I put an offer in front of you, and whether that offer is whether you negotiate that offer or not, you have just made a data point, right? And then other people are gonna make possibly negotiate, and they're gonna change that default offer a little bit, and so you're gonna see some unevenness in what people make. But there is a concept in the human resources world called internal equity. And it's not just a concept, it's actually a law. It's a labor law. And it says that people who perform jobs with substantially similar duties have to be paid a similar rate, not identically, but a similar rate. And
mhm,
so the HR department is watching this, and they are responsible for ensuring that that there is an internal equity. That is, if you have an HR department that's behaving consistent with the law. Let me say that.
mhm.
So yeah, you can encounter internal equity issues with pay between people who have the same job title.
Is that everything, or should we listen for or wait for questions to come in, or is there anything
Well,
else
how
you want
much time
to?
do we have? How much more time do we have, Jason?
We,
Time check,
we
please.
we're running up against. I would say we have like 5 minutes.
Oh, 5 minutes. Well, then let's cut it off right here. As far as Kip monologuing, I want to do Q&A.
Okay. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask at this time. We'll do the best we can to answer them. I'll just check to see if there's anything here that we missed. What about negotiating for training, Kip?
So, is there any more information about what kind of training, or is this
That
something that we negotiate during the hiring process or afterwards?
Yeah. Can you negotiate for a training budget during the hiring process?
Yeah, I think you can. You can certainly ask about that, right? I would begin by saying, hey, is there a defined training budget for the people on your team every year? And if so, what is that? And are there any requirements that I have to satisfy in order to be able to access that? That's the way I would ask that question, and then I would listen to the response. And if the response was, well, it's completely discretionary as far as who gets to go to training or not, then I might say, well, could we talk about some training for me? Because I would certainly appreciate the opportunity to grow in my professional skills. And how about after I complete 90 days with satisfaction, could we talk about a training opportunity for me in the next 6 months?
Serena, do you have any other questions for you that you want to ask?
No, the training question is a good question because that's something that you should definitely consider, either like tuition reimbursement. There's a lot of companies that offer tuition reimbursement, certifications.
Hmm.
If you want like INE, for example, or CBT nuggets or some type of like other training like that, like figure out, because a lot of companies do have some type of built-in budget for continuing education or possibly tuition or different things. So that's part of that full package thing I was talking
Yeah.
about.
Yeah, full package deal. And go into
Mhm,
it knowing what's important to you, so that when you are
mhm,
negotiating, you can emphasize those things. And I think you can ask almost anything as long as you ask it with respect.
mhm. Yeah, definitely.
What is your opinion, or why do you feel people don't negotiate?
Why do I feel people don't negotiate?
Hmm.
Um, because I think there's a couple of things going on. I think psychologically in the United States, we're not comfortable talking about money as in society in general. I don't think we're comfortable talking about money, and that might be a generational thing, right? I'm a Gen Xer. Maybe Gen Z people, don't have any problem talking about money and salary. So let me acknowledge that. But I think historically, we haven't really done that. I think this goes also back to something we said in the beginning, which is we don't teach people. There's no formal training for job hunting, and therefore we are not taught how to negotiate, and we're not really taught how to do it, and it doesn't come natural for most people. Um, these days, I own a small company. It's called Cyber Risk Opportunities, and I've owned it for 7 years. And I felt very uncomfortable talking about money in front of prospective customers. I don't know why, but I just wanted to skip the money conversation and go straight to the let's do some great work together conversation. But I couldn't. I had to have the money conversation. It was absolutely necessary. And it was a blocker to us finding more people to serve. And so I eventually hired somebody to coach me and to train me on how to have that conversation about the money, and to do it in a way where I didn't feel sleazy and slimy, and that I also could do it with respect, so that my prospective customer would see me as somebody who isn't focused on the money for the money, but is focused on the money because he is trying to serve that person, and he's confused about whether they want him to build a sailboat or a submarine. So if we could talk about the budget, I think that would clear it up.
I have one comment, then we have our last question. So I lived in South Korea for 16 months when I was in the military, and I got so used to negotiating, haggling for everything that I bought. And when I got back to the United States, I was at Best Buy and I needed to buy a TV. And the salesperson walked up to me and I was like, I'll take, so this is like one for 1,000. I'll take both for 75, like for 750. The guy just looked at me like, what? And I was like, yeah, I'll buy two TVs now for 750. And the guy's like, that doesn't work here. And I was like, oh, that's right, man. I can't do that here.
America. Duh.
All right, last question for today, and I think this it solves both questions I got asked. How would someone with little to no experience, like maybe boot camp experience or entry level experience, get to the interview process?
Okay, to get to the interview process, this actually starts to touch on things that
On,
Jason knows how to do really well,
I think it
right?
would be video 1 and 2. Like if you go back and
Yeah.
watch video 1 and 2, like I think we're gonna answer that question for you. So
Yep.
check out Kip's previous video on YouTube. So, Kip, last questions. With remote work at an all-time high, do you think that the interview process is definitely different with regard to the right fit for the job?
Well, it certainly is different. It's absolutely different for different reasons. It's difficult to build a connection with somebody when you're not physically in the same room. Some people really struggle with that. Some people don't, and so that's different. Even from the candidate side, it can be really difficult to make a connection with somebody that's interviewing you. There's some real limitations to how I can do an interview um, virtually versus when we're in the same room together. For example, standing at the whiteboard, right? How am I going to do standing at the whiteboard with you over Zoom? So I've got to innovate a little bit, and I've got to figure out how to do that. And there's also an issue going on right now that employers have to be really worried about, and that's the use of deep fakes for uh, non people to get jobs, remote jobs where they never meet you in person, and then use those credentials that have been supplied, like as an IT systems administrator, to then deploy ransomware or steal confidential information. This is the thing; it's happening,
Wow.
and so employers have to be on guard for that stuff.
I have never met Serena in person, but I do believe she's a real person.
There's actually a TikToker recently that had about 150,000 followers, totally fake person, was
Mm,
a deep fake basically generated by AI, and
wow.
had gained 150,000 followers on TikTok. And then the girl eventually, once she broke 150,000, like came out and was like, no, this has been me the whole time. Like, I'm not that guy.
Huh.
Wow.
So it's crazy. There's AI influencers now.
All right, Kip. Kip, you teach classes for Antisyphon. We show up here. It's the Antisyphon live stream. Antisyphon does training. The reason why we like Kip to come back is because one, he's an instructor, and two, because if you take training but you don't know how to get a job, like those two things should definitely go together. So that's why we show up and
Hmm.
talk about job hunting and negotiating and everything else. Because if you have training, use this to get the job. If you know how to get the job, but you don't have the training, then maybe, or once you get the job and you need training, come see us. So Kip, you have a class coming up. What is it? And then we'll wrap up for today.
Yeah, thanks for asking. So I'm going to be teaching a class in about a month, and that class is called "How to Be Irresistible to Hiring Managers." And what do you suppose that class might be about, Jason?
I think it's about how to get jobs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's a complete description of how to go through the entire process of initiating a job search and then following it to conclusion and bringing it not only to a successful compensation negotiation, but also your first 90 days on the job and how you can hit the ground running and finish those first 90 days reaffirming the hiring manager's sense that you, in fact, were just as irresistible on the job as you appeared to be during the interview process.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's important. Like that first 90 days, there's a book out there called, I think, First 90 Days and things. But it is that I got the job, I'm going through the onboarding. How do I make this work? Kip,
Right.
thanks for your time
Yep.
today. Any final words before we wrap?
Thank you so much for having me here. I really appreciate it. For those of you who would like the 40 questions, don't forget to drop me an email and I'll be happy to share it with you.
And tomorrow and every other Wednesday, Serena is going to be doing cyber range walkthroughs. And what that means is she's going
Nice.
to take one of the challenges from our cyber range and she's going to say, here is how you solve it. At least here's how she solved it. Now you can watch and go like, oh, I know through walkthrough sometimes someone's like, that's it? That's all you had to do? Because it's like, I spent like 8 hours on that. But and so, or there will be opportunities to say like, well, have you thought about this? And it's not like, Serena, did you think about this? It's like, no, there's always different ways to solve things. And so we'll get a chance to start doing this every other Wednesday here on the Antisyphon live stream. Serena, you have anything to say about that? It's tomorrow.
No.
Yes.
do the challenge ahead of time before the stream if you want to get full points for it. And then after it's been on the stream, I think you can still do it just for a reduced amount of points. I think I have that correct. So
That's correct.
yeah, and then if you don't figure it out and you're just getting frustrated, then you can watch it on the live stream and do it with us. So
all right, everybody. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time here on the Antisyphon live streams. My name's Jason, and we got Serena and Kip. We'll see you next time.